I think Jaelan Phillips is a very interesting prospect. I think there's a lot to like about Jaelan Phillips. I was a huge fan of Jaelan Phillips coming out of college. These were his college statistics, which I didn't really pay much attention to last year, but now as I've gotten more analytically inclined are things I pay more attention to. These are sort of, PFF grades and also like pass rush win rate and stuff compared to other college players in 2020. And you see that his numbers are very good. The little dot you see, the furthest to the right it is, the better it is. Pass rush grade, 87.6, run defense grade a little bit lower, but still good, 83.0. Did very good in true pass set pass rush grade, and then also a very good pass rush win rate at over 20%. Run stop rate not quite as good. That's kind of the one not great statistic here, but as a whole, very good numbers out of college for Phillips, if this is stuff you pay attention to, which, again, just in case you're unaware, I did a whole video kind of talking about how, what positions do PFF grades from college matter. At the edge rush position, this stuff translates really well to the NFL level. Guys who have high PFF grades at the edge rusher position in college end up being good pros. That's not in every instance, but in a lot of instances. However, in 2021, his grade was not great. Again, if you value PFF grades, the pass rush grade was all right, 61.3. That's what you pay attention to. Run defense grade, very much not good. And really, overall, 53.7. You want to see him take some improvement. So let's talk about what he did well and maybe what he can improve upon. So first, let's start off with something like this. So you see he's going to be lined up one-on-one against a guard here, which is interesting, I think, using him in some unique ways, because that's what Miami does. It's worth mentioning that Phillips, last year very much played for a very specific scheme, and it was the Brian Flores scheme. Right when this play begins, you see how he's going to, start off like this, where he's going to step to the guard's right. He's just going to try to use his speed to get this initial jump, which he did. He used the speed to get himself in a good position. That is something that Phillips is very good at, is he uses that initial burst to kind of just get the guard to be in just a kind of a bit of a tough position. So, right now, if you're the guard, what do? You kind of have to just try to push Phillips to the left side of the screen, right? You're probably not going to just completely stop him in his tracks at this point. However, Phillips is barely moved. He even kind of pushed off the tackle a little bit to help make that work, and he helps create a pressure right there. That's the hope for Phillips, and that's kind of what he did in college. And when he's at his best, is he can use that speed to then you're not able to push him over, and he's able to get to the quarterback. That's kind of what you hope he can do. Now, I will say, going over to something like this is where he got a decent amount of his pressures, which can be considered a good or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But what's going to happen is he's going up one-on-one against the left tackle right here, and watch what happens. So as you see, Phillips starts off right here, and at this point, I think the tackle's doing a good job of holding him off. I mean, Cam Newton had time to throw here. The downside for Cam Newton is there is pressure coming up the middle. So Newton now has to figure something else out. As you see, he starts to scramble, and I think Phillips, to his credit, at that point did a very good job of reading the scramble, getting over to where Newton was running, and making the tackle. There is certainly value in that, especially value in that when you play for the Miami Dolphins, right? When you play for a team that blitzes a lot and gets a lot of pressure up the middle. Although the question is, will they change the scheme, and could that hurt Phillips? Like, watch, here's another example of that, where what's going to happen on this play is that you're going to see right there, he's going to get chipped, and then you're also going to have the tackle come over and block him as well. So the chip means tight end starts off blocking him, then goes to do something else. The tackle then is the one who, finishes off this block. Look, as you see, right when this play begins, you're at this point now for Phillips where there's not a ton he can do, which I think is fine, personally. Like, I think that that's not really his fault in any way. You got double teamed, kind of. You had the chip. That you're kind of doing your job if you can take on that extra attention. There's pressure coming up the middle. You've done everything that you realistically should be asked of. But also look at how from this point on, once PJ Walker tries to scramble out, he gets over and gets to the sack right there. So again, that athleticism and how he can win off the edge really comes in handy when there's pressure up the middle. The question is, I think, simply, will it be a similar scheme, and will there be as much pressure up the middle? Because I do think this is the benefit, but if you're losing this benefit, and I will also say, you still want more than this. This still can't be the only thing you're good at if you're an edge rusher, but there's still something nice about it, I think. Also, something like this, where what's going to happen is that, so on this play, you see where he is on the screen. He is going to be going up against the left tackle, so he's on the right side of the screen, since the camera is angled towards the defense. But anyways, watch what happens. Again, you see how Phillips is going to initiate the contact, and he's going to get his left arm kind of to the inside of, just right on that shoulder pad area for the left tackle, and that's what he's trying to do. He's going to try to use power here. As you see, it works. He shoves him pretty far back to where the guard now has to run over and make the play. So good job. You got the guard's attention. It's only a 3-man rush, only so much you can do, but that was nicely done. Except then watch him pull off the spin move and he gets over and gets to the sack. That's a really impressive play. And something like that makes you say, okay, there's some flashes here for Jaelan Phillips. That was an impressive play, and that was a well-done play, and it kind of makes you start to think, okay, I can see why this guy was such a hyped-up prospect, and I think that maybe you just give him a full season, this can sort of allow him to potentially reach his full potential because he was banged up so much, hasn't had a ton of playing time, and you just hope that with stuff like this, you see the flashes, maybe, he definitely has impressive plays, and if he can be more consistent, he can really thrive because he did have solid production numbers, and he had some games where he went off, including this Panthers game. I do think that we also have to mention when talking about Jaelan Phillips, he did get a good amount of pressure, and that is something that you're going to feel comfortable with if you're a Dolphins fan. And, he had about 550 snaps, so we're talking a little over half of the snaps the Dolphins took, or half of what you'd expect an edge rusher to take if they were out there every down, and he had 26 pressures, so if you were to make it like 40 pressures, that'd be a really good season that's around where he would be at, a little bit over 40 pressures. Now, I think also worth mentioning, there is a clear outlier in this. He had a 7-pressure game against Carolina. That's also where he had 3 of his 8.5 sacks in that game. And that's where he saw a lot of the examples I showed you were from that Carolina game because, that was kind of his most notable game. He still had some other good games, though. He did have a 4-pressure game against the Colts and things like that. So, there's stuff to like about Phillips. And I think that the stats make you feel a little bit more optimistic. And I would say, listen, this is a guy who did get pressure, who is a clear, great athlete, who is someone who had success at the college level and was a hyped-up prospect. I think that I'm going to suspect that he will be better in 2022 than he was in 2021. I think it's fair to assume he will get better. I think it's fair to assume that, he wasn't even horrible his rookie year. I thought he did some nice things. But I think it's fair to assume he can kind of take the next step from being a solid contributor to a legitimate, good starting edge rusher, which is what you hope that he can be. That's what you drafted him for, is to be a great edge rusher, especially with, who knows, if this system changes, he might need to just sort of win in consistent ways on the outside more frequently, and we'll see if he's able to do that. Now, I do also have to say, part of it is, while we can sit here and say, he was banged up, that's becoming a more and more of a thing with Jaelan Phillips. That's part of why he fell in the draft. As much as you can say being 18th overall is falling, because the fact that he did have injury concerns, a lot of it was concussion stuff. But with all of the injury concerns, I think that's another interesting issue here. But as a whole, I would expect Phillips to improve into year 2, as I expect most young players to improve entering year 2. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Jaelan Phillips? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.